Welcome to Leadership Luminaries Lounge with Kerry and Peggy O'Neill, a podcast about the connection of leadership, philosophy, practice, and impact on society. Get ready to be illuminated.
Well, welcome back to another episode of the Leadership Luminaries Lounge with me. I'm Kerry Bass, your co-host, and Peggy O'Neill, our other co-host. And we're coming back with part two of our conversation with Wanda Sturm. Wanda is the immediate past chair of ASQ. And has been a longtime leader in breaking barriers. And we are going to continue our discussion around belonging. And we were just, we ended part one with a good part of that discussion. And then we're going to continue with that. And then anything else that kind of comes to mind as we're having our normal conversations. So, Wanda, one of the things that that you pointed out and was the particular purpose of your leadership, in particular, actually your leadership in ASQ, was making sure that individuals, regardless of what their background and culture and ethnicity was, felt belonging as part of this global organization. What are some things that you have seen throughout your career, and maybe even some things that you thought about and done at ASQ that have helped people from diverse backgrounds, those that were already part of the organization and those that are coming in as new, feel like that everybody belongs? What have you seen that's been successful for leaders to do in that area?
I think one of the key things that has helped people with that, not putting them on the spot necessarily, but to ask their perspective or their opinion in terms of, how did this work for you in another environment, right? In your original environment, is this how you would approach this? A lot of times you will get a really good alternative view as to how you could approach a problem or how you can approach implementation of something. If you look at the amount of technology changes that are going on in the workplace today, I know it's just like, I'll ask, can you tell me about that? Can you tell me how you would do that? And then many times it's bringing those people into the conversation that wouldn't normally be in the conversation. One of the things I do at work is I conduct project team surveys to help them better understand how they can better follow their mission, achieve their goals, stay on cost and schedule, et cetera, like that. So in doing those surveys, I work with a gentleman that does a lot of the technical work behind the scenes. And what's really great about him, and we've built rapport over time, is that he'll come and he'll say, Wanda, hey, I got this great idea. What if we do the graphs and everything, for example, in Power BI versus do them in Excel graphs? And I'll be like, I don't know. Have you done that before? Do you know how it works? Can you show me an example? And then he'll do that. And he has done that. And it's really cool. And it's very useful and it's very interactive. And it can really help the team better understand the results of their survey that they conducted. So that's just a small example, but it's one example and he just happens to be from a different country, a different culture, and yet he's excellent at his job. And, it doesn't matter where he's from, and it doesn't matter what his personal beliefs are or what his color of his skin is or any of that. He's just an excellent person to work with. And I think that's one of the greatest things that you can do for anybody, is just view them as another person. Not, we need to keep awareness of differences, but also just treat people as human beings, with respect, and, act with integrity. those, and those are a lot of buzzwords, but
No, that's
those are
great.
the things that I think can make a difference. Another thing that can really make a difference in helping people feel like they are belonging is not only asking their opinion, but once you ask for their opinion, don't blow it off, right? Actually implement something or do something with it, and then recognize them for what they've done. What you need to be careful with the recognition part is, how do they like to be recognized? Some people don't like public display. Some people like something private just told to them or given to them. So just be sure you know what that is. I think one of the key things in recognition systems is understanding who's receiving the recognition and how do they like to receive it and what would they like to receive. I mean, some people would really like a pen, an ink pen, and other people would like a pen like this, or other people may like a pat on the back because they're just doing their job and that's not comfortable for them from their culture. And that's okay. You don't have to force your culture on them. Sorry, Peggy.
How do you find that out? How did you find that out? What a person wants?
So, in one of the programs that I worked with, where we were setting up the recognition program, we actually asked people. We gave them a little slip, and they had three things. They could put three preferences for recognition, up to three, no more than three. Hopefully at least one. Or they would write, I don't want it. I don't want recognition. But we had very little of that. And it was more people saying what was meaningful to them. And then we put it all in, so it's work. You put it all in a database, and then when you get ready to recognize somebody, you go back and look what was rewarding to them, or what would recognize them the best, this. And then you learn over time, as you work with the people, so it becomes more natural. But at first it's a little hard, but if you've got a team, and you can do it on a team level, so it doesn't have to be done like company wide. You can ask each team to do it and figure out how to do it. I know at my contract company where I am now, they have a system that they use, and they're given so many dollars that they can use for recognition within their teams. And it's really sad because a lot of times they'll get to the end of the year and they're like, oh, we didn't use our recognition dollars. They don't take it away, but it's like, come on, people, didn't somebody do something good that you want to recognize?
Yeah.
So that's actually application and follow through is probably the biggest thing.
You bring up something that I think that's really key, and it's kind of work between you and me, Peggy and I also, is that you really need to have some courage, and that's both from leaders and from people in the organization, to get to know somebody, and give them a little bit of grace. And if they say something or do something, ask them, what do you mean? And then you'll find out either they, I'm fond of saying, and Peggy has heard me say it a few times, the world is full of jerks, but there's not as many as you might think, if you give them a chance. And so, and you might find out you're a bit of a jerk yourself. So that you needed a little bit of a grace. I know I do from time to time. But maybe give an example of where you've run into a situation where you saw somebody that you thought was being a real jerk, and rather than writing them off, you took some time to go and understand them and to talk to them, and you found out maybe it was different, or you confirmed your suspicions that they were jerks and you didn't want to spend any more time with them.
So I had an example a few years ago at work. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm worked with more men in my life than I have with women. So sometimes I actually find it difficult to work with women. Because I think we approach things maybe differently and yet the same. And so a lot of times when you're kind of the same, you have a lot more conflict. than you do if you're total opposites, right? Because you can learn to appreciate the opposite, but you can't always appreciate the one that's similar to you. So I know a while back I had a person that I worked with, and I was just like, nothing she did, I thought made sense. And it was just so frustrating. And I would watch her interact with other people, and I would be like, why do they think that's okay? And then, so I had to stop and do some self-examination too. Like, is it me just because I don't really care for her that much that she's not living up to my expectations of what person should be in this role? Or is it that I'm jealous that I don't have the role? So you have to look at those things, right? It was very interesting because we both knew that we had a conflict going on between us. We drew names at Christmas time, and lo and behold, but she got my name, and she was not very happy about that because you have to buy gifts for people, right? And you don't know them very well, and it's like, what are you going to do? But I'll never forget that when we had the final get together, uh, we we said something to one another. I said, you were my secret Santa, right? And she says, yes. And I said, well, I'm sorry if I made it difficult for you. And then that kind of opened the door. And then she said, well, it's been a tough year. And then she told me about some things that I didn't know that was going on with her. And then I was like, well, you should have said something. I do have empathy, and I'll empathize with you about those kind of things. And then I could have helped. But we were too busy, knocking heads to really do that. So, I'll take 50 to 75% of the responsibility for that. And we're not close friends by no means, but we ended up working well together for the last little bit. And then, time has moved on. So it's okay. I don't know if that's the kind of example you're looking for.
It is.
I'd love to go back to something we had in the conversation we were having in the first part one of this, when you were talking about that men and women, of course, it would be good to have a mentor, and to get mentors, to have mentors of both sexes. And I'd love it if you could talk more about that, because I've never heard that before. Just find somebody that you would like to mentor you, but hadn't really heard to think about that you might want one of
So for me, because I worked so much early in my career, primarily with men, I always sought out men mentors to help me better communicate with men. If you find someone that always someone that would tell me, no, Wanda, that's not a good idea. You're going to hurt yourself if you do this. You don't need to say things like that. I was very vocal, and I'll never forget when I left one company and went to another one. I went back to have lunch with one of my former coworkers, and I was telling him something that was going on at work, and he says, "Oh, it's so nice to know you haven't lost your edge and your vocal ability." And I said, yeah, I'm still doing that. But I said, I'm learning. I'm still learning. I'm still learning not to say the wrong things. But they were very good about suggesting ways to better communicate and better present. Because during that time period, there was a lot of presentations, and you were kind of made or broken on how well you presented and answered questions. So it was things like learning not to put everything on your slides, being able to leave some questions for them to ask that you knew the answers to. They helped me that way. When I moved to other companies and I worked more with women, to me, it was more important to understand how are women working today. When I first started working, it was like I said, a male dominant industry, and most of the women mirrored what the behaviors were of men at the time in the workplace. And I think people would tell you that kind of universally from back in the 70s, 80s. And for me, when I started in the 80s, but that was still going on somewhat. So to have a mentor in an industries where women were more predominant. So then I went to work at one point for Hewlett Packard, and Carly Fiorina was the CEO. So then that was different, having a female CEO versus being in an organization that was predominantly male. And so what I did is I sought out different women in the organization that I could go talk to and understand what was required from leaders in the organization under her leadership. Now, when she left and all that happened, then things changed again. But it was an interesting period of time, because I can say I had worked at Compaq, and then it was purchased by HP. And to me, it was one of the best examples of merging two companies I had seen. And I had been in several mergers before that. And I was very impressed with the way they set up the transition and the merging of the two companies and the teams and the selection of teams and things like that. It was, they did an excellent job, I think, for that particular merger acquisition that took place. It is not fun being on the bot side of anything. It's much more fun being on the buying side, but you do learn. And I will say, I think it's real important then to have had some of that mentorship from men prior, because then when things changed, when Carly left and the new CEO came in, it was important to understand then, because a lot of the top people changed, how to interact with people differently. And it made a big difference. So just going back to that, I would say look for some of both. And the main thing to do is talk to them about your communication skills and how you're coming across and trying to sell your ideas, not really the right word I want to use, but promote your ideas and how they can make a difference in the organization and what you think it's going to do for the organization, but to get very honest feedback in terms of, this is why, yes, that's a great idea, this can help, or no, this is not a great idea, I don't think you should continue to pursue that because it's going to cause this. And then that gives you some opportunity to go out and dig around some more and see, oh, is this something we should really pursue? And, they just don't like the idea, or is it really something that's going to hurt in the long run?
Great.
So Wanda, just push it just a little bit more on that. Have you ever had a man come to you, or have you ever reached out to a young man or whatever that have growing potential, and you became their mentor? And how difficult was that for you to teach a man how to be more have better belonging skills in a different gender world?
I don't know that I've really mentored someone. I coached a lot of men in their leadership roles as their leadership coach. That was always interesting. And especially because they're typically senior to you as the coach in the organization, right? But what I did find is giving them specific examples and calling out certain behaviors that you saw them exhibit seemed to make a difference. What with younger men that I've coached at all or worked with or mentored, they're extremely eager to learn and they want to do a good job. And so I'm very careful to say, from my perspective, this is what I would welcome. Not everyone's going to welcome that, right? Not everybody likes challenges, right? I like to be challenged. I like people to ask challenging questions. It's depending on who they're interacting with. And I think one of the main things is helping them understand, how do you read people? And that's not even correct either, but how do you get to know people so that you know what their trigger points are, so that you don't irritate them, but that you're able to get your point across in a way that is going to be helpful, not only for you because it's your idea and what you're trying to talk about, but it's also going to be helpful for them. Can you point out what the benefits are for them? So it's, and working with young guys, mostly I've helped them identify, hey, here's a good role. I can put in a good word for you because I know you. I know what kind of work you do. And I've written letters of recommendations, commendations, stuff like that to help people progress in their career more than really mentor them so much in their role.
As the head of ASQ and the global leader of quality management, you and I both know that the world of technology is changing significantly. And a lot of the techniques and practices, particularly around statistical process control and statistical analysis and all those kind of things, are becoming automated through the use of AI. And generative AI is taking on a lot of tasks that administrative roles have done. With that in mind, from your perspective now of being the leader of the quality organization, of the leading quality organization of the world, where is the quality profession going, and what do you suggest that people start looking at to remain viable? And is quality as a separate entity viable, or should you start thinking about how this should be blended into better and other new roles that organizations are going into?
So I have always been a proponent of the big Q,
Yes.
all about having products and services that someone in the marketplace would like to purchase.
Mm-hmm.
And that whatever you sell to them, whether it's a product or service, it is of quality and they want to come back and get it again. Now, that's been my thought of quality ever since I started with it. The statistical part, the analytics, all of that is stuff that you have to have, and it's the key data that's going to drive you to make your right decisions and make fact-based decisions. But what I would say is, as things are changing so fast, I read something not that long ago, and I'm sure you guys have seen it as well. It's like AI is not going to replace you, but someone who understands AI will.
Yes.
So I think one of the key skills and competencies that people need to be working on is, how can you use AI to help you analyze quicker, faster, to get things of quality to the marketplace faster. I think another way we experienced during COVID so much, so many issues with supply chain. How are we going to make supply chain work more seamlessly? With the advent of potentially some manufacturing come back to the US. What kind of jobs is that going to need? What are those skills? You still need to produce something of quality at the end.
Yeah.
So is quality a separate profession for the rest of the history of the world? I have no idea. I do think that quality is a critical component. I do think that you need leadership that says, if we're not producing things that are of value to our customers, then we need to start looking at what we're doing. I do think that you need leadership that is willing to make some of the tough calls in terms of, hey, we thought this was a great idea in 1970, and 2025, it's not such a great idea anymore. Let's advance. I also think that there are a lot of other disciplines that mix well with quality. So you can look at risk. You can look at all of risk management. one of the things that I do with work is I'm associated with preservation of like large equipment. If things are not preserved well, if the products used to preserve something are not of quality, it can ruin billions of dollars of equipment. So you really need to think about what quality means for you, and then how can you bring it to life in whatever your role is. And I do think that a lot of times we have had to have separate quality organizations. We have to have people that are focused on that, because it's easy to get focused on everything else. So for example, if you're an electrical engineer, you're going to look very much at all the electrical systems for whatever it is that you're manufacturing or building. As you're doing that, you really need to look at how is the quality of this electrical work this system that I'm building. Well, you may not can do both. So you may need a partner to help you with that. So maybe it's a quality person that steps in and helps with that. You need to, if I look at financial services, I mean, look at all of the hacking going on and the importance of cybersecurity today. Who would have thought, 10 years ago, cybersecurity would be as important as it is, and that there's majors in it now. But cybersecurity has to be of quality. It can't be just, oh, hey, we got this tool, stick it on there and it'll work, and keep you safe. But you've got to make sure that it is of quality and that it's going to do what it's supposed to do. I really, really think that maybe now more than ever, there is a need for people to understand quality and understand what it can do for their products and their services. And that without that, maybe we just have junk.
Yeah. One of your predecessors, and you and I have talked about him many times, Greg Watson. He defines quality as the relentless pursuit of goodness, tightly coupled with the persistent pursuit of goodness, tightly coupled with the relentless avoidance of badness. And so that leaves a whole myriad of activity. And one of the areas that I like to think about is in the boardroom and the C-suite. Quality is paramount there, because you need to make the right decisions because of the downstream cost of making a wrong decision or sticking with a bad decision. Or when you know better, just like you talked about, it's time to make a different decision, because there was a good decision then, but we know better now. And so therefore, I need to have this courage and commitment and strength to change, because I know, and it's my responsibility to move the organization in a different direction. What would you recommend for those of us in the quality profession to get that influence? How can we move up the chain to be able to provide value?
For board members and CEOs, the thing that speaks the most is numbers, and typically dollars, right? If you can demonstrate that this year, yes, we had a great year, we made X billion. If we had done X, Y, and Z, that profit could have been double that. If we continue down this path that we're on right now, it's going to have a negative impact, and we're not going to do as well as we did this past year. So what we're going to need to do is make these shifts. But I think if you can demonstrate that, and it's hard, it really is. It's not something, I mean, it sounds simple. Oh, sure, here, let me show you how the other thing is, there is still, even though there is Lean Six Sigma, and a lot of companies have tried it and they've said, oh yeah, it's ingrained. Yeah, sure. There is a lot of waste. And the easy thing always at the CEO level is to suggest cutting people, because that's where your highest expense is. And I think that one of the things that we can do is potentially help educate those in leadership to understand that, yes, cutting people because it cuts a lot of dollars is very helpful for the short term. However, if you look at the long term, as you're cutting those people, what are you changing with your systems to be able to make sure that you can still produce the quality product or service that you've been doing? If it hasn't been of quality, then what's wrong? What have you not done? And you as a leader is responsible for that. I mean, you can't just go out and um, you know, buy smaller companies and hope that, okay, that's going to give us a boost. That will give you a boost for a while. You can't go out and sell all of your assets thinking, oh, that's going to give us a boost, because then what do you have left? I mean, because I think leaders look at the bottom line so much and we are beholden to shareholders, I think it even bleeds over into our nonprofits, where nonprofits, although they're not seeking to make a profit, they've got to have enough money to execute their services, but the services have to be of quality. Back to that whole thing about people want to still be there, they still belong. It's the same for companies. People are no longer as loyal, I don't think. I don't have any statistics to prove this, but from my engagement with people, companies do not breed loyalty like they used to. And so because of that, it's easy for people to leave. And it seems like humans are becoming an expendable resource, just like any of your other resources that you would use to make your widgets. And I'm not sure that's true, because I really feel like, as we talked earlier, if we were to all work together, if we would actually be that stew, if we would all come in collectively with our diverse opinions and ideas and begin to bring them to life, there's no telling what could be done. But again, we get in our own way, right? We don't allow that to happen. I wonder sometimes if we're afraid of success. But
That's interesting. Yeah.
And the other thing that comes to me around quality and like if there's something's off with the revenue, is thinking, like you're saying, of firing people, letting people go, that impacts then the culture and the mood of everybody else, which then impacts the quality, because back to loyalty as well, that, oh, well, they're just going to fire people because the bottom line isn't so great, then why should I care so much, and so on. So the ripple effect related to quality of that way of approaching problems, does that resonate with you? It looks like it does.
Yeah, we were talking about that the quality of good decisions at the top. You have to have more than just that short-term thinking, even though that your board or your shareholders may be saying, what's the next quarterly return? Does the company intend to exist beyond the quarter? Yeah. Well, Wanda, it has been a tremendous pleasure, honor to have you as our first guest of 2025. Peggy, any parting thoughts or questions?
Really enjoyed it. Appreciate your wisdom and insights and experience. I think it's probably our audiences, you watching this, probably benefited quite a bit. So thank you so much, Wanda.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you, Kerry. Thank you, Peggy. This was fun.
Thank you. And like I always do, I get the honor of being able to say, let your light shine as you continue to lead or seek to lead. Thank you.
In the Leadership Luminaries Lounge, we sit and chat with Peggy and Kerry, where wisdom's at. They sprinkle insights like morning dew in this lounge where knowledge blooms anew. With every episode, they set the stage, sharing golden nuggets, turning life's next page. From boardroom tales to dreams out loud, they uplift a thought and make you proud. Oh, swing and sway with Peggy and Kerry. In the lounge where visions are merry, take a seat, let your worries retreat. In the Luminaries Lounge where leaders meet.